I had a small dinner with George and President George and First Lady Barbara Bush. I get up to walk to the other side, and I take my beer with me. And Mrs. Bush said, "Are you old enough for that, son?"
Joseph Lindsley, his story of dinner with the Bushes, yet another reason we refer to him as the world's most interesting man.
And I think this is part of the strategy. They want to keep Russia wants to keep everyone guessing.
Let's check in live with Joseph Lindsley. And there's a report today, Joseph, that I'm sure you heard about as Russia's invasion of Ukraine enters its 11th month. Officials in Ukraine and also the United States are saying that Russia's artillery fire is down dramatically from its wartime high, in some places by as much as 75%. What is the explanation for this? Any idea, Joe?
Well, Bob, good afternoon from Lviv. I think we've seen, especially going back to early in the summer in June, with the arrival of the HIMARS, these long-range artillery rocket launchers from the United States, Ukraine has been able to stop Russia and push them back, obviously regain territory that had been conquered. And then Russia, in the past few months, Russia shifted its approach to attacking infrastructure with missiles fired from the Black Sea or from the Caspian Sea or from Belarus. But now we're in another shifting phase. I mean, we've heard about for almost 2 weeks now the Russians attacking the city of Bakhmut. They've been unable to capture that city since June, in large part because of these long-range weapons that came from the States. And just keep in mind, the current front lines, it's a distance that would be from, say, Chicago to Salt Lake City. And Ukrainians have been able to hold that line since the summer with only 20 of these long-range rocket launchers from the United States. So just imagine that amount of territory in the U.S. and only having, this the most sophisticated equipment, only having 20 pieces of that to protect you. So it's really amazing what they've been able to do. But now, as with today, this town of Soledar there's intense battles being fought there. Russia's claiming that they've taken that city, that small town. I've seen videos of Russians in the salt mines that are in the town, but we still don't. It still seems that Ukrainians have control of most of the city. And in the past, the past week, the artillery attacks that's been really the main focus of Russia this past week. So from whether it's in Nikopol, a city that does get shelled day and night by artillery from across the Dnieper River, or Mykolaiv, there still was a lot of artillery action. And it's, here in Kyiv, in Lviv, and in a lot of central and in all of Western Ukraine, there hasn't been an air alarm since January 6th. So it's a weird, while we know that there's horrible, intense battles going on in the east, the activity, there's been no Russian missile activity. And so it puts everyone kind of in a weird, when you have every day that goes by, every hour that goes by where you do not hear an alarm, where there's no major Russian attack, there is a kind of a sick feeling that what is coming next.
Do you think Russia may be rationing artillery rounds?
It's hard to know. I mean, what we see, it's sort of bizarre what we see happening right now in Soledar. Within the Russian military structure, there's a mercenary group called the Wagner Group. And I mean, this is the group that they've hired prisoners to fight, sort of the lowest of the low. And they're very ruthless, and they've been throwing bodies as much as they can at Bakhmut, at Soledar. And there's certainly, all the resources not all, but much of the resources that they have, they're spending to take these two small cities. Yes, I don't know. We don't have clear information on all this. I mean, some people have said, even months ago, that Russia was running out of missiles, and then a few weeks later, starting from October 10th, we had a series of almost weekly massive missile attacks. It is hard to know these things, and we've also had the arrival the past months of the sort of very terrifying drones from Iran. When do those drones arrive in Russia? Iran says that they were sent before February 24th, before the full-scale invasion. But some experts speculate that that's been a new arrival somehow through a third party. into Russia. So, is Russia able to resupply in these things? What are they able to manufacture? And then I saw a video this morning of from, I guess it was from Saturday, of top of the line Russian tanks that have not been seen yet in some of the theaters of battle. Why? So some speculate that. I mean, it's very hard to know, but some speculate that Russia is the equipment that it wanted to protect, it now has to use because it's running out of the other resources. And then, of course, there's the other big question of the early in this war, everyone expected the Russian Air Force to play a big role, and it hasn't, and no one has air superiority over Ukraine, and so Bob, there's lots of questions on what kind of resources Russia does have. And I think this is part of the strategy. They want to keep Russia wants to keep everyone guessing. Last night, there was the Golden Globes in the States, and Sean Penn, who's been to Ukraine many times, and he's got to know Zelenskiy. He introduced President Zelenskiy, who spoke to the audience via video. And it was interesting that Zelenskiy said, he spoke of his hope that people will only know about war from movies, not from real life. And then he said, and this will not be a trilogy. There will be no World War III. And it's interesting that he, especially going back to his New Year's address, he started to use a little shift in rhetoric, using the word de-escalation, because every time when Ukraine has a major victory, like taking back Kherson and Kharkiv regions, the Russians and some of the West called it escalation, and now Zelenskiy saying we need to victory means de-escalating Russia, which means escalating things on the Ukrainian side, and so now I think the refrain for those who support Ukraine and Ukraine is no matter what resources Russia has, Ukraine needs more top-of-the-line equipment, especially tanks, to push back against Russia, and to not be in a situation where there are these endless battles when no one's moving in the cities of Bakhmut and Soledar.
I saw that very inspiring message from President Zelensky on the Golden Globes last night. I'm very impressed when he does those things in English. And you notice, Joseph, I refer to him as President Zelensky, right? You know about that.
Yes. I'm not sure if I think I misspoke there. I did not say President Zelenskiy. But the reason why I always say that is because back in the days when I was working for the chairman of Fox News, as a 24-year-old, caught up in that crazy world of power, I had a small dinner with George and President George and First Lady Barbara Bush in Texas. It was the boss of Fox and his wife, and then the president and Mrs. Bush and me. And I was 24. I was sitting right next to the First Lady, and what do you say? I didn't know what to say. And President Obama had just given Queen Elizabeth an iPod of his speeches, and I said, because they come from different political parties, I should tell a joke about President Obama. So I made some stupid joke to Mrs. Bush, to the First Lady, and she looked at me and she said, "Son, I'll thank you not to talk like that. You need to respect President Obama. You have no idea what it's like. Only people who have served at that level can really understand it." And so from that moment, it was an awakening moment for me. And ever since then, whenever I speak about a leader or a president, even if I have disagreements with that person, I always make sure I use the honorific president, thanks to Barbara Bush scolding me. And she also, I had a beer at this dinner, and the President Bush, when Barbara Bush was scolding me, President Bush said, "Joe, come sit next to me." So I get up to walk to the other side, and I take my beer with me. And Mrs. Bush said, "Are you old enough for that, son?" and then as I was sitting down next to the president, she said, "Don't worry, I'll still be able to hear you. You have the loudest voice in America." So it was an amusing exchange, but it really taught me how to even if you have disagreements, to always respect. We have to have respect in our discourse to keep our democracies.
Joseph Lindsley, his story of dinner with the Bushes, yet another reason we refer to him as the world's most interesting man. We'll talk again tomorrow. Thank you, Joseph. Have a good day. Joseph Lindsley, world's most interesting man.
This I find in my garden. It's piece from rocket. help us to win in this war.